Charles Saker was born in 1831 if you trust Wikipedia, in 1839 if you're more comfortable with the LNER Encyclopedia's estimation. Whichever year it was, he would later find himself apprenticed to Archibald Sturrock, and go on to be CME of the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway, later renamed to the Great Central. His last locomotives were the Class 7s, a set of 6 tiny 060 side tanks. I can only find a single image of one online, and we get a look at its side, where we can see that the tanks were very long, covering the sides of the smoke box and blocking any hope of getting to the inside motion. Crews called them piano tanks and orange boxes. From their introduction in 1885, they'd remain almost unchanged. One of them got vacuum brakes, and the whole class would later get Robinson chimneys, but that's where the changes ended. As far as mechanical changes were concerned, there was next to nothing. It seems that aside from difficulty with maintenance, they were well liked by crews. They were small, with wheels just 3 foot 9.5 inches in diameter, 15-inch cylinders, and a boiler pressure of just 130 psi. They produced a tractive effort of 10,900 pounds, and yet they worked on. You'd think they'd be so weak it wouldn't be worth it, but they all made it up into the 1910s, with, as I said, little to no changes. They'd bounce around the network a bit, but between 1885 and 1920, all 6 would work reliably. 4 of the engines would be withdrawn between 1920 and 1921, with no withdrawals in 1922. In 1923, the LNER would do away with the final 2. Number 10B was withdrawn in March of 1923, and 11B that July. The first engines to go worked 35 years, and the last for 37. For tank engines so small, that is more than respectable for a service life. You have to remember that trains were getting longer and rolling stock heavier, so no matter what happens, the weight of trains was going to catch up to them. It's worth noting that most of the class was gone by the time of the grouping, and the withdrawals would have continued regardless. At the same time as these little engines were being pulled from service, the Great Northern was building J50s, then J23s, for the same work, and they didn't stop construction after the grouping. The Class 7s may have weighed only 38 tons, but for 20 tons more, a J50 could do well more than twice the work. And between the construction of the Class 7s and J50s, countless other stronger engines had been built for this role. As you could already have assumed, none survived. Saker would never see the end of his class's working life. In truth, he hardly saw its beginning. There was a devastating accident involving one of Saker's engines. It broke a crank axle, and the jolt separated the engine from its train. Due to the braking system in the carriages being of poor design, they could not stop on their own. The locomotive harmlessly came to a stop, while its express ran down an embankment, killing several people, including Saker's good friend Massey Bromley. The accident occurred in 1884, and while he continued on for a little bit, he just couldn't keep this job up. He stepped down in 1886, and on August 3rd, 1889, he prepared his revolver and shot himself. The worst part in all of this is that it wasn't really his fault. The locomotive breaking down, certainly, but the train derailing, no. He had pushed for a better braking system, and the board of directors blocked him from this. It took them another 3 years to switch to a better system after the accident, by which time Charles had been retired for over a year. He was in his 50s at the time, very young for a CME to step down, and there's no doubt that the guilt over the accident haunted him to the end of his days. The Class 7s, reliable they may have been, were the last design of a broken man.